Hey, Malindi. How are
Hey,
you? Hey,
good.
good to see you.
How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you for coming.
Oh, good. Oh, I just got your message. I was
Yeah.
connected.
Oh,
Maybe just
sorry. I probably didn't see you on the list there. There's a lot of people, so sorry. My bad.
no worries.
So yeah, we'll probably go in another minute or so just to let the crew in. But all said. I figure you read that intro. The Odyssey, the 25-year Odyssey of starting from where you started to where you got to, unconventional and perhaps unexpected to the marathon, is probably the narrative of our chat. Is there any other questions you had for me or ready to
No.
go?
Oh, good. How many people do you have joining?
Can I see that right here? Probably 25, 30.
Oh, that's a lot. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
so it should be a good crowd, and I imagine we'll get lots of questions. But maybe we'll start with a bit of the backstory on maybe the race or something. Or where do you want to? I just want to give them a little bit of meat, to get to know you a little, and then we'll flip to questions, or
Okay, sounds good.
we'll see how it goes. It's pretty cash, pretty low key.
Yeah, I'm a little. I'll cool down, but I just jumped off my treadmill like
Oh my
10
gosh.
minutes.
Okay. Well, that's one question. How do you fit it all in? Well, you do it with split-second timing.
I was thinking my day today had like no margins on any.
Yeah. So,
I've been racing from one thing to another, so it's all good.
oh, perfect. Well, that'll be very emblematic and on point and honest of how you've managed to do this all. So, okay, I'm going to let them in, and we'll get going here. Let's see. The middle. Yeah, there'll be about 20, and then they usually see if I can get them going here. Popping in. Hey, everyone. Hi, guys. If you have your audio on. I know many don't, as is our custom when we get a big crowd. Oh, there's some regulars and some new face, not new, but returning. I haven't seen some of you guys in a while. This is great. Good to see you. Hey, everyone, just coming in. More at the door. 1 second. We'll get everybody in here. So, yeah, it's a busy night on our MDI Zoom. How many are in there already? 20 plus. So I'm going to keep watching the door as we gather. There'll probably be a few late entries. But I know I don't want to lose any of our special guest time here, so we'll probably jump pretty soon right into things. Just a quick reminder, when we do have a big group, that we like to keep our mics off or muted generally until you have a question, and we'll go to questions. Then pipe up, please, by all means. But yeah, just to eliminate background noise and stuff, we like to try and keep it quieter until then. And you also have the text chat box, so you can certainly, if a question pops in and it doesn't seem like a good time to ask it, and it doesn't seem like a good time to ask it, then just type it in and we'll circle back and get to it. Okay. Yeah, busy night. They keep popping in. So anyways, without further ado, hello everyone, and I wanted to take this opportunity to welcome our special guest. I've probably ballyhooed her enough on the promo, but I still want to do a little bit of an intro to make sure you understand how phenomenal it is that we have this tremendous human being with us, Malindi Elmore. Hi, Malindi. How are you?
Good. Thank you.
Good to see you. Yeah, she, as you probably read from some of our bio introductions, has been on the scene, and I guess on and off the scene, over 25 years at the very top of Canadian distance running. She's been at the national level as a teenager, prodigy, you could say, certainly level, standout collegian at Stanford, NCAA, an Olympian in 2004. I think it was a near Canadian, or might have been even a Canadian record shortly after that, of close to 4 minutes, 4:02 in 1,500 meters. All of that was exactly that, at the 1,500 meter, the mile type level of running. Perhaps some visits to the 5,000, but after that, there was probably some struggle, and as there often is with athletics, and then for a quasi-retirement or something, in 2010, and then 2019, there's a marathon, an amazing one, like 2:32 out of the proverbial blue, and then a year later, 2:24, completely obliterates the Canadian all-time record. So yeah, it's such a phenomenal story and trajectory with lots of, I'm sure, tertiary and side plots. So yeah, I would like to turn it over to Malindi to, I guess, give us some background on that. So, and then we'll turn it into questions, because of course, I'm sure we all have a few, and we'll make the best use if we can of the next 30, 40 minutes, if we can. So Malindi, yeah, what's it all about? How did you do what you do?
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Gosh, I don't know. I just keep running.
That's probably the secret right there.
Yeah, I really try to enjoy what I'm doing and enjoy the process and chasing goals. And actually, I was just telling Kevin, I literally got off the treadmill 10 minutes ago, which is why my hair's still soaking wet and my face is still red. And I was thinking about it because I'm kind of out of shape right now because I had a bit of an injury this spring, summer, and this is my first workout, my first tempo run today since April. And I was like, you know what? I kind of like being unfit, which is really, I feel like, counterintuitive, because I feel like the margin is so significant right now that next week I'll be able to go faster and farther, and it'll be less effort. And then week after that, it'll be even better. So like you alluded to, I've had lots of downs among some highs of the career, and it's kind of managing that. And I still love doing it. I still love being fit, and I still love the process of working back to fitness after breaks, because I've had lots of injuries and times off and pregnancies and all those sorts of things that have made me reevaluate if I want to do it again, and I always come back to wanting to do it again.
Cool. Yeah, so I do want to circle back on, I have a bunch of questions myself, but maybe we'll start more recent and then we'll work back. This race, which was only, to say that seems kind of odd, but only what, 8 or 9 months ago? It feels like 2 years, 5 years, who really knows? It was in Houston, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you expect, the word around, the people I've talked to say, yes, you expected that to happen, or very close to that? Like, it wasn't, to you and your inner circle, it wasn't completely off the grid, right? You had planned to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think after I ran the year before in Houston, I ran 2:32 for my first marathon, and my second baby was 6 months old, and I had decided 4 months prior to do this marathon as a challenge. And I just discovered really quickly that I was really suited for the distance. But I also knew after I ran that race that we had left like a whole pile of rocks unturned, just given the timeline, given that I had been off of running for a good number of years. And I loved the training, and I never understood, because I coached people too, and I never understood their addiction to marathon training and racing, because being in my 1500 mind, that was crazy. Yeah. And then I got into it and was like, oh, okay, this is what people are into. And I totally got the bug, and I loved the race in Houston 2019. I just had so much fun. I never felt like it was a grind. The whole race, I was feeling really conservative with my effort, because I knew that was my first one, and you're waiting for the proverbial wall. And then I finished. I was like, that was amazing. I can't wait to do that again, and we can do so much better. And my husband had taken over my training at that point. And so we just sat down and we're like, you know what? The Olympic standard of 2:29 is completely within reach. 3 minutes with, 8 months of training under my belt, and taking a few more risks in training and racing. So the goal had been to run Toronto in October, and just to try to win the race in Olympic standard. And my training went super well this time last year, September, October, and then literally a week before the race, my hamstring just tweaked on me but I'd already started to see some indication of workouts that were showing that we were well below the 229 mark in training. So I was prepared to go into that race though, and just race it sort of strategically, tactically, because I wanted to win the race. And, you know, that was the goal. I mean, anything can happen on the day, but that was the goal, to go in and just run a competitive race. And then I had to pull out. And so we reset, and it took about 3 weeks to get my hamstring back under control, which I was lucky that it came back so quickly. And then my workouts again had just bumped to another level in that period. So I did kind of a build, a break, and then another build. And I just really loved the distance, and it sort of came way more naturally than we ever imagined from my shorter distance background. So yeah, going into Houston was like, that's what I should be able to run, and then it's nice to be able to execute on the day.
Right. Yeah, no, it was interesting to see that. I knew that a few months before in Waterfront, the undercurrent was that you had something, well, big brewing, and that, you know, if it were not for the hamstring thing, it would have happened there. But it just feeds again that narrative that, you know, everything coming together at once is a contrived and fairly unrealistic, you know, narrative. It often takes a number of shots at that level, you know, at that target, while you're in the sweet spot to get it. And I think that was really cool that you somehow, you know, recovered from the hamstring, which was probably a moderate level injury, not terribly serious, but enough to hold on to it, to be able to come back 4 months later.
Yeah, it was exactly 3 months. It was October 20th to January 20th. Yeah. And I think I was super lucky because I wouldn't say luck, because they're just amazing people. I'm super grateful for the people on my team who, you know, it's really easy to get kind of depressed and in a funk when things don't go right. And they helped me reframe really quickly. Like, okay, Toronto's not going to work. Let's move on. What's plan A, B, C, D, E? And we went down the list, and we had all these backup plans. Like, if it takes this long for the hamstring, this is our plan. If it takes this long, this is the plan. And in all honesty, Houston was plan A. Like, if things come around quickly, that's when I can go again. And, you know, my physio, we'd have these conversations. I've been working with him for 20 years, and he just was really good at helping me, as well as my coach and team. Like, let's think positively and think forward instead of dwelling on what didn't happen. And I've had problems in the past where you kind of get caught in that loop of like, you can't get past the setback to move forward. And that really helped me this time.
Totally get it. Yeah, no, that's a lot of lessons within that, to be sure. We've got a question here from Jane Davies. Hello, Jane. She's off mic. So hi, Malindi. Thanks for joining us. I think she means, what do you think of the poor support for our young Canadian athletes at home, and to reach their full potential? Many of them have to go to train in the USA. I imagine that might have been part of your story at Stanford. I don't know. Which is harder running two-parter. Which is harder, running a marathon or having a baby? Compare and contrast. Thanks. What do you think? Always the great questions, Jane.
Okay, so sorry, the first one was, what do I think about young athletes going to the US? Did I hear that right?
Well, yeah, I guess the why of that happening.
The fact that they,
support.
Just that I feel they have very little support at home in terms of training, financial support, and so on.
Yeah,
and I just wondered what you thought about that.
Thanks. That's a good question. I actually coach now. Well, I coach high school track in a club, but I also coach UBC Okanagan campus cross country team. And I've been having a lot of conversations with, you know, top runners that I'd love to have come join my program. And I was chatting with someone last night about this. And 20 years ago, when I was finishing high school, it seemed that the US was the place to go for the competition and the training and the, you know, all the support that NCAA offered. But I actually think that things have really changed in a lot of ways in Canada, and that you can get an amazing education at our universities in Canada. Cost of living is much more manageable, and really great training opportunities. And if you look at Rio Olympics, 14 of the 16 women who ran the middle distance events in Canada were educated at a university level in Canada.
Good. Excellent. That's good. It's a bit
And we
late
have-
for me, but
Me too.
Never say never, Jane.
thank you.
So the
And the second question?
oh yeah, the important one.
Do you have children, Jane?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I have 3, yeah.
Okay. So if you run marathons?
I have run a marathon, yeah.
Wait, how many?
I've run more marathons than I have children.
She's well over 100 marathons in.
So I guess I've answered my own question, but I would just be interested.
How many kids again?
Oh, hands down, without a doubt, having children is the most difficult 12, 24 hours straight of life. If a marathon is that much, people would not run.
That's fun. Thank you.
Awesome.
Very cool. I've got one here from Sherry. Well, how fitting. My wife. Family.
Oh,
to
hi,
turn
Shay.
here.
Oh, I didn't realize it.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
popped in. She says, yeah, she's not off on mic. How do you balance parenting responsibilities and the big mileage, the high volume training? And do you find time? How do you find time and energy to do both, given how hard we just talked about, not just the having the baby, but raising the babies? How hard that is.
Oh boy. I just have to get it done, right? It's all priorities. I also have to work because I actually don't really make very much money running.
Welcome to the club.
Exactly. Gotta pay for those kids' soccer cleats and piano lessons and all that good stuff that's important for them. I'm also married to a really amazing man who he coaches me. He goes to work. He helps out with the kids. And we really prioritize my running in the family, in a family kind of way. It's like we go to the playground on a Saturday morning while I do a run, and the kids play with their dad at the playground, and then I'll hang out at the playground while he goes for a run, and that just sort of becomes our lifestyle. And we did Graham and I, my husband's name is Graham Hood. Some of you who follow track might have heard that name before, so he gets it. And we both did long course Ironman for a number of years when our oldest was born until we had the second. They're 4 years apart. And so we had that kind of lifestyle then too, when we were training for Ironman, both of us. And that was way harder because we were trying to get swim, bike, and run in on a weekend. And literally, like, we'd go, you swim, I swim, you bike, I bike, you run, I run. Oh, let's have dinner together.
Wow.
Yeah. And our kid, by the way, is like, well, he's 6, our oldest, and well, the jury's out whether he'll actually be an athlete, but
You never can tell.
exactly.
Wow, very cool. Got a question, actually a couple. Let's they moved along here from Brian Cupid. He's read an article many years ago where you were discussing mile race tactics. It sort of came down to run. The tactic was it sort of came down to run really hard and then keep running hard. How do you mentally shift to marathon race tactics or marathon race psychology?
I think it's the same sort of key in both. The execution's different, but it's still being process oriented. So doing what you have to do in the moment to be at your best. So the thinking process for me in a 1,500 meter race is very different than the marathon, but I'm still completely focused on the moment. In the 1,500, it's actually a way less thinking. It's just like run as hard as you can run and don't think about anything else, and cover moves and save something for a kick. And then the marathon, people say like, oh, don't you get bored? And I just feel like there's still so much to think about, like staying relaxed. When am I taking my next gel? Have I had water? Am I, where's the pace? And I keep my watch on kilometer and mile. I do kilometer pace and mile splits or something like that. just like, so there's just all this feedback, and it's just always thinking about, am I in the moment doing exactly what I need to do to be running as fast as I can run? And I don't even have time to think about anything else. So staying in the moment and being process oriented, and I really try to avoid thinking about results while I'm in a race, even though all my training is geared towards a specific goal or result. As soon as I step on the line, that's kind of out the window, and I just trust myself to execute my fitness the way I've trained.
Very cool. I think that answers that one pretty well. I'm sorry, just letting more people in. We're over 30 almost. So a couple other questions. There's a comment here. Maybe Tina, do you want to unmute, and you can, because it's more of a comment, you can offer that directly to Malindi if you unmute. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Malindi. My comment was just a thank you for going out there and training the young ones. I started running at age 52, and prior to that, sporting activity or any sport or anything to do with running was like not a thing of my life. So I'll never run like Jane did 100 marathons plus and that. And I think it's great that you as a younger person, or even if you were older than me, you'd still have more experience than me. And I think it's fantastic because I never received any kind of motivation. And I think that if you're at schools and you're training and helping people, that's fantastic, because that's one way of getting more people out there. And I think one thing we are very conscious of, at least in my age category, is there are not many women in our age group that we know of who actually go out there. So we take kudos for ourselves, even if they're not given to us.
As
So
you should.
Well, I'm going to give you kudos because I think it's awesome.
That's right.
That's
Very
it.
cool. Let's see. We have a couple more on the chat box. Well, there's one I see from Brooke. Do you have a bucket list marathon, or a couple that you are on your list, on your radar, that you'd love to do if and when we get the chance again? What do you think?
Well, I didn't say my bucket list marathon is Tokyo 2021.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And it's not something that I never, until like the last year when I thought, oh, I might be able to do this again, I never expected to be in this situation again, where I could think of going back to the Olympics 17 years later.
Wow.
And that's quite a thrill for me. And I feel like I've got a couple good years left. So I actually think it would be pretty super to also throw my hat into the bucket for Paris 2024.
Wow.
I'll be 44 then. But also, like Graham points out, I had 8 years off of training hard, and I feel like that kind of like meant that I've preserved some of my good running years.
Yeah.
I just took out my 30s and just shifted it.
Yep. You get to do them. You get to use those anytime you want. It's just a question of how many you use.
Exactly.
I've been using that philosophy or that excuse for I don't know. I'm almost 40 years into running.
Well, and Tina should use it if she started at 52, right?
Yeah.
You've got 52 years worth of running still left in you.
She's got lots of miles left in those legs, I'm sure. Bucket list. Oh, Annie. She says, I'm curious how the skills in track and field, cross country, those kinds of things helped you in converting or moving to long distance marathon, the training, the racing. She's thinking that we should all be shaking things up. Sounds like you do a lot of variety. What do you say to that? Is that?
Oh, I 100% agree. I think that we have not seen a good translation of our track talent to the roads. Typically our top middle distance runners retire from running in their early 30s and they're kind of done. But if you look at, say, in the United States, a lot of the top marathon runners, so Shalane Flanagan, Kara Goucher, Desiree Linden, Molly Huddle, etc., Sally Capiego, et cetera, they came from track backgrounds in the US. So they were fast at one point. Shalane Flanagan's PB in the 1500 is 4:05. Kara Goucher's is about the same thing. They both run under 15 minutes for the 5K. Those are, you know, world-class performances on the track in the short distances, and they scaled them up. I think part of what we've seen in Canada is we have not seen the translation between track athletes becoming road runners in the past, and I think we're starting to get there. Rachel Cliff, Natasha Wodak, myself, we all ran track in high school and university, and now we're running longer distances. But I think that is an important part of our development. And you work on the aerobic stuff when you're a little bit older instead of focusing on it super young and missing out on some key development. And then when you talk about variety, like I'd throw in there, I as I mentioned earlier, I did 3 or 4 years of long course triathlon racing. And that, I think if I hadn't done that triathlon piece, I wouldn't have psychologically been able to make the leap to marathon training, because suddenly my perspective is like, oh, a 2-hour long run's no big deal. Where when I was a 1,500 meter runner, that was crazy.
Yeah.
So, and also I'd say variety is key. Like I've kind of followed my heart and what intrigues me and what's interesting to me at the time and what I can get excited about, and change is good that way.
Great lesson there. Don't be limited by what you have been defined as before. I think there's always that level of discovery ahead. A couple of more. I wanted to pop one just in case I run out of a chance to ask the questions. The role of coaching. I mean, it's interesting. You mentioned Graham is coaching you, and of course his very storied career is all about the mile, or the 1,500 meter and the mile, and your background as a younger runner was the same. It's just so interesting to me that, you know, you guys have worked so well to put the pieces of the puzzle together for the marathon. So maybe what do you think the you know, the kernels of wisdom or truth, if there are, from that collaboration are, from you guys being, you know, hardcore track middle distance runners to converting to marathon? And then maybe a part B to that coaching thing. You, of course, have been a coach now for more than 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you think you've learned from your athletes, from the experience of coaching runners that way? And if so, what are one of the two of the lessons, perhaps, if you can remember them, if they strike you? So maybe, yeah, Graham first in the 1,500 meter coaching to the marathon, and then maybe your own experience as a coach. Have you learned from them?
Great questions. Yeah, so Graham didn't have a ton of coaching experience per se, but he's always been really interested in the sport and read a lot and asks a lot of questions. And so he reached out. So when I decided I was going to do the marathon, it was more just to do the marathon, not with any kind of goals in mind. So he's like, I'll just put a plan together for you. And then I started to really get into it. So he reached out to a few people who are really good resources in the community, including, I'd say, like, key among them is Trent Stellingworth in Victoria, who's a good friend of ours, who's the lead sports physiologist for the Canadian Sport Institute. And he also works really closely with Mike Van Tegum, who was my longtime track coach, who knows me really well. And kind of, it was a bit more of a collaborative process, and then my input as well. And Graham follows, like, digs into people's training when it's available, like on Strava or online. Yeah. Of especially of like women who have kind of similar backgrounds to me, and just learned a lot and just kind of self-taught. And I think the big key that we kind of discovered is that you need to approach the marathon not like a track runner and just suddenly throw a bunch of miles on the table. So it's the intensity and speed doesn't really matter, but being able to do a long run, the significant portion of your long run at marathon pace, for me, is key. So a lot of people also seem to think, or maybe in the past, like, oh, I'm just going to go do a long, slow, easy run. When in fact, if you just do a long, slow, easy run, and then your goals are to run significantly faster on race day, your body's not going to be ready for that. So just specific training under the similar context is what you want to race, but not very many sessions. Like, you need to do 3 or 4 of those in a training block, or I need to do 3 or 4 of those in training block. Yeah. And that's it. And the rest of it is all just kind of just working around those key sections every 2 weeks for 8 to 10 weeks is kind of the formula that we kind of put together through talking to people and doing some research.
Cool.
And so far it's worked.
Yeah. Learn from the best, I guess, you know, to become the best. And that part of borrowing from excellence, I guess you could say. Graham was doing a little of that, and, you know, obviously drawing on his decades of experience as a runner.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's very analytic, so he can really look through things and kind of pull out the key pieces, I think.
Yeah.
And in terms of what I've learned as a coach is, well, I've sure found a lot of inspiration from working with people, and for a lot of years I felt just as fulfilled by helping other people achieve their goals as achieving my own goals. And I understood why my coach has been so invested in me and why it's so important to them. And it really is a team process. I feel it on both sides, as a coach or the athlete. And coming back to being an athlete again is really trusting the process and trusting ultimately the coach. So I was thinking this again today, how Graham and I talk about my training and talk about the week, but in the end, what he, like, I'll give him input, but what he decides is what I do, and stop second guessing and stop trying to negotiate always with the coach or doubting what we're doing. It's like, there's this a plan, and if you do the plan, it's going to work out. And taking away some of the stress as an athlete of trying to figure out what you need to do, and just saying, that's my coach's job. The coach, if I do what the coach tells me to do, then I'm going to be prepared. And I try and instill that in my athletes too. If they can do what I've asked and not always, oh, I need to do more. It's actually often more holding people back who think they need to always do more.
Yep.
And in some cases other people actually need to do more. But if they actually just do what I tell them to do, not more, not less, and get injured, you will run fast. And so I have to put that trust back in my coach, that if I do what he tells me to do, it'll work out.
Very cool. No, it's interesting to put the shoe on the other foot again, right? As an athlete, it can be revelatory to realize that, oh, this is what it feels like. Definitely.
But we are all very obedient, Kevin, aren't we? I never question anything that you tell me to do, ever.
Never for a moment, I'm sure.
Actually good to question things and to understand things and to be empowered to make decisions and provide input, but at the end of the day,
still do it.
Well, to have that and it's okay as a coach to change too. It doesn't have to be set in stone from day one. It's okay to ask an athlete what they think and adapt to that too.
Totally. That's how, for 20 years, I feel like I've been learning more from the runners I coach than, I ever knew myself. So yeah, it's definitely that way. I've got a couple more questions. We have time, a little more. Ada asks, what do you consider your top 3 must-do strength exercises? Like 80-20, what are, if you only had 15, 20 minutes every day or two, what are the strength exercises that you prioritize higher than others?
Well, I was terrible about doing strength exercises for 8 years because I didn't consider, after I was done doing track, I didn't consider that I had time to do that stuff. And even in the last year, because like I mentioned before, I'm working, I have children, and I'm trying to train. So I didn't do strength really because it was just like the thing that got crossed off the list. And then I got injured again. And now it's apparently clear to me that I can't not do strength. Yeah. So, and my injuries in the last year have been hamstring related, which is actually a really common injury I'm learning for women in their 30s and 40s, soft tissue, loading, tendon problems. So I have tendinopathy, which is like the damaged tendon at the insertion point of your ischial tuberosity, which I never knew that hamstrings could hurt until this started bugging me. Anyways, so what I've had to work on in the last year is actually strengthening my hamstrings to take the load off the tendons and not ignoring them. So my must-do exercises that I'm onto now are deadlifts properly, like doing proper deadlifts weighted, like with 5 reps with about as heavy a load as I can manage, working up to that. And then I'd say I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like a back bridge where you walk your feet out and back in again. And that's also for hamstrings. And I have one more that I always do. Just kind of an isometric bridge hold. So basically anything targeted for my hamstrings now I can't not do. And isometric hamstring holds are also they're what's the word? It's like I'm gonna pronounce it wrong, so I won't even say it, but it provides like
eccentric.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah, eccentric loading is good, but basically like isometric holds, you know, you're not going to get sore from them, but they activate the hamstring and engage them before I run. And I was ignoring all that stuff, and I kind of had to pay for it, but blessing in disguise, figured it out, healthy now.
Yeah, stronger because of it.
Yeah.
I would think. Got one here from Paul Hire, who, not yesterday, the day before, just ran a 2:59 Boston virtual at 62. They come top 3 in the Boston virtual standings. I just checked or found out. So congrats, Paul. Little plug there for him. He asked, probably very importantly right now, given his efforts on Sunday, what is your recovery routine between hard workouts and long runs?
Good question. That's changed over the years as well, and I think I recover easier from volume than from intensity, and I think probably a lot of people are in the same boat, that mileage in itself almost isn't as damaging as just running hard and fast. So when I ran on the track and was doing hard track sessions, I was more beat up than running long runs now as a marathoner. So I just run usually just active recovery, so run easier on my days between long runs and workouts. And yeah, I don't worry about my pace. I don't worry about what Strava says at the end of the day. I still use Strava mostly because I'm not very good about keeping a training log, so it's the only way that Graham actually knows what I ran. But something I learned doing long course triathlon too was more active recovery. So I used to think I needed to take a day off to recover. And then what I learned with my coach in triathlon was just like lowered intensity aerobic training. So still doing a light spin or a light swim or a light jog helps you recover faster than doing nothing. And so I actually rarely now, at least for me, the position I'm in now, I don't take a day off. I seldom take a day off because I feel better if I run every single day, where I used to need a day off to recover. Now I need to keep running or my hamstrings get tight and everything gets sore, right? It might be an age thing too. I don't know.
No, that's great insight right there. I think many of us relate. I know I can. I used to do 3 to 4 run workouts a week and try and either rest or cross train. And over the years, not that I'm infrequently healthy, but where I'm more healthy, it's 5, 6, occasionally 7 run days now, and that's a big change for me. So but they're only 1 or 2 are serious efforts. Everything else has got to be easy. Though even that, it's funny how we evolve as athletes and coaches. And one of my objectives this year is going to be to run my easy stuff crazy easier than I ever have. Easy. We all have our easy. We all have our numbers. We all have a sense of what we think is easy. But I'm going to try and turn that on its end and go completely easy on those recovery, active recovery days. Just slow it down, frustratingly slow, if you want to think of it that way. So and it's interesting and maybe that's aging or maybe not. Maybe that should have been there all the time. I can't answer that, but I know for the future, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I think most people run their easy runs too fast. Yeah.
I think that's probably a common mistake. One of the top 3, if there was a big list. I had a reference to keys to your success. You've covered most of those, I think. I think we've touched on them, or you brought them up tangentially in other questions. So answered my questions. At this point, if anybody has, another one popped up just in time before we get close to our cutoff. Brian Kibbard, with your background in triathlons and then sandwiched in the middle there between that 1500 track and then now the burgeoning marathon potential, do you find cross training helps? Obviously, you have a lot of experience in those activities. Do you still ride your bike at all or a lot?
good question. The answer is I should, but I don't. But it's more related to managing my kids and my time than anything. So I would ride my bike more, but it's really hard, like at home. So my kids are 2 and 6. They just went back to school and daycare after 6 months off. So basically I would like run on my treadmill because they can be home, or I would run 45 minutes before Graham goes to work, or when he gets home, he just pulled in our driveway. Where a bike ride is more time intensive. So I feel like you kind of need an hour and a half or 2 hours to really get a bike ride in. And I don't feel like I have the time for that. I would actually ride a bike, if, a little more if it weren't my life situation, but I believe really wholeheartedly in the impact, in the positive effects of cross training.
Right. Yeah. So, in a perfectly separate and distinct world, you would if there was unlimited time, but there isn't. We know that. Oroya asks, just as we get close to wrapping up, she's curious, just out of curiosity, what's your easy pace when you say these extremely easy runs?
Yeah.
She's just interested to hear, what is your easy pace, if you even know it?
It ranges for sure. So pretty much, I rarely run my first kilometer less faster than a 5-minute K. It's usually like 5:15 or 5:20 for the first couple K. And then I know that I'm starting to feel good if I finish the run around between 4:20 and 4:30 per K.
Wow.
So I usually average like 4:30 to 4:40 pace for a run. But but it's a minute difference between the start and the finish generally.
Yeah, it starts extra really slow, finishes a little more comfortably, easy, but yeah, 4:30. Yeah, and keep in mind, if that to many people sounds fast, she races at, depending on the distance, 3:10, 3:15, 3:20, right? These are your common race paces.
Yeah, so I run 1 minute to 2 minutes slower per kilometer than my race pace. And if you the VDOT calculator that Jack Daniels put together, which for me is like bang on. I'm sorry, I don't know how to turn. Oh, I need to just close my apps. I'll stop beaming.
Okay. You're popular.
I'm getting way too many emails right now. The VDOT app, which is amazing. I correlate like perfectly. My 4:02 1,500 meter performance lines up bang on with my marathon performance and almost everything in between. Well, there's a few, like my 10K is a bit slow for what I should do based on the other two. Yeah. But I'm really predictive on I follow his tables really well. Yeah. And he has one pace for easy pace based on my performances that's way too fast. So I always think that, my interval pace, I don't know, are you guys familiar with the VDOT calculators and the Jack Daniels tables?
Many may not be. They may have heard of it, but the reality is without knowing, they're actually doing, I found out that you hosted a coaching clinic here in Toronto. It feels like 2012, 15,
no, it was later.
14?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, around there. And I'd been at coaching for 15 years, or maybe even, at least 15 years by that point. And it was reaffirming to find out that what I was doing lined up, and all the prescribed workouts with the Maripace and the steady state and obviously the interval zones, it all matched up. And I didn't even know who he was or what he was doing until I knew about him, tangentially or through the running magazines and that I knew. But it was just great. It was like, wow, this works. I mean, what I've been doing is the same, or within scant seconds. And so they basically have been doing much of the Jack Daniels VDOT method.
Okay, cool. So if you guys on your smartphones, you can, there's a website. It's called the just search
VO2
calculator. Or Run Smart Calculator, or there's an actual app called the VDOT Calculator, and you just put in your performance, any distance, or what you want to run, and it gives you what you should be doing your workouts paces at, depending on the type of workout. And I'm sure your awesome coach here, like he says, he already knows, and you're probably already doing that, but it's just kind of fun.
Dumb luck, discovered I was accidental.
Yeah.
Paul Heyer added that link if you guys want to check it out. It's in the chat box, and I'll save it. So.
But I guess my point is that Jack Daniels, while everything lines up performance-wise and for my workout paces for every other kind of workout, for my easy paces, it's too fast. What I should be doing, I have to run them a lot slower.
Yep. Yeah, and keep in mind that if you proportionally, if she's low 3 and she's doing a lot of this long, very easy long stuff at 5 minutes or just under, that, you know, almost 2 minute or minute and a half per to 2 minute slower, proportionally for people that race at 5 minutes is much bigger a difference proportionally. We're talking about 7 minute Ks, you know, it's 7.5, 8 minute Ks in some cases. That would be, you'd be training proportionately fast and slow as Malindi if you did that, just to put it in perspective. Yeah, so easy on your easies is a big takeaway if you want, if you get nothing else out of that. Totally. I think so. Cool. Yeah, well, I didn't want to keep you past 7:40, and I've already done that by 3 minutes. So I'm sorry if it's cutting it close.
No. Actually, I had told Kevin I needed to pick a kid up from gymnastics or something, but it's on Thursday now. It's all good.
Okay. Well, if it gives us a perhaps purview for 1 or 2 more questions, if there are, just at this point, just unmute and fire away because I can't. There's 25 of you there. Oh, looks like Jane's got a question. They're always singers.
No,
oh, no? Okay.
I've had my turn. I have a million questions.
I'm sure you do. We could do a whole other questions from Jane. It could be a whole Zoom show. Yeah, no, I was looking for anybody else that maybe hasn't asked one to ask. We've answered it all. She's been that good. She said you have no questions about your running. Well, no, that's great. Yeah, as by way of wrapping it up, I was going to say I usually have a story of some kind after doing running as long as I have that about my connection or relation to our guest speakers, because you know there's a few and far between across the country. Usually there's an intersection at some point, and there, other than that coaching course in 2000 whatever it was, 13, 14, my paths hadn't crossed with Malindi until now. However, back in 1996, I'm going to say, plus or minus a year, that would be about right. Her husband won a New Year's Eve race in the brutal cold of High Park of Toronto. We had Graham Hood come and run our New Year's Eve race, where he of course won, blew away the field. But we actually had a New Year's Eve type, you know, 10 o'clock finish, and we're rounding toward the New Year's. We served a whole meal and everything. It was a crazy logistics for a fairly young man trying to put this on top of my other work. And my poor lovely, who is here right now, wife, Sherry, was relegated to washroom duty on New Year's Eve. To have the comings and goings of all the runners so they didn't steal stuff from my running room store at the time. And somehow she stayed with me after that. So yeah, that would be one connection that I remember to at least the couple of Malindi and Graham. Yeah, there's always stories in the running community. We are all connected.
Do you remember my outfit that night, Kevin?
Oh my gosh, you are putting me on the spot.
No, you do not, do you?
What did you wear? I'm forgetting. I'm old.
Oh, I'm not even going to say it in public, but it was...
Risque?
No, it wasn't risque, but it was flamboyant, let's say.
Say it. What was it? I'm honestly, I can't remember. I don't have the pictures anymore, I don't think.
No, I don't think I have any pictures either, but it was a fun night.
But you were there.
Yeah, my friend and I did it, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's, yeah, it was like 20.
Yeah, we go back a long way, Kevin, you and I.
25 years ago, yeah, wow. So there you go, crazy stuff. Mention that to Graham, see if he remembers doing a New Year's Eve race in High Park. That's,
and being marshaled in and out of the washroom.
Yes.
By the lovely Cher.
My lovely Sherry, washroom attendant extraordinaire. How she ever stayed with me after that, I don't know. But here we are, 6 years later. Close enough. All right. Well, thank you very much. Of course, first and foremost to Malindi. Everybody unmute, whatever it is. And let's give a rousing round of applause to our guest.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good.
That was terrific.
Thank
Such
you.
a great window into the behind the elite scene, and where we realize, yes, there's stuff we don't know and that they do, but also how relatable in a way, and how somewhat similar in some ways those that run so much faster than the rest of us are to us.
We're all doing the same thing. We're all doing our best, and we're all covering the same distance. So I think it's really awesome.
You got it.
You guys joining us tonight.
Oh, that's terrific. So thank you so much, Malindi. We'll let you go. Get back to your family. Say hi to Graham for us. And thanks, everybody. We'll see you guys at workouts and such and weekend runs in the next week or so. We'll sign off for now.
Kevin.
I'm going to
Thanks,
save this
Kevin.
one. I've got it on video, and I'll save the chat as well.
Good.
Thank you, guys. See you later.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Cheers. I want to make sure I save this. I'm forgetting. Where's my save? Save chat. There we go. Oh, you didn't? Oh. And you're like, I know Graham Hood. Yeah. Yeah.